Hey, it's Josh.
And Aaron.
We would like your help to grow our channel.
If we can grow to 8,000 subscriptions,
we're going to give you this Indominus box.
The rules are simple. Subscribe to the channel now, and when we reach 8,000 subscribers, we're going to put out a special thank you video. Everybody who comments on that video will be entered to win this Indominus box.
Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button.
Will people follow?
I hope so. This episode brought to you by The Rising Tide and by subscribers like you. Well, we had a flood, and while that flood did not directly affect my hobby space, it did leave a stinky dust all over everything, so I decided that it was time for me to remove everything from my office, clean it off, and then put it back, and while I was doing that, I figured I'd take this opportunity to share with you my hobby essentials. In the darkness, at my desk. Why are we in the darkness? Because the first and most important thing in regards to my hobby essentials is understanding my workspace. First and most important essential is a self-healing cutting mat. Understanding how much space you have to work with, and more importantly, defining the amount of space that you have to work with, is key to building a good hobby space. Now, if you're like me and you have a dedicated desk, understanding how much of that desk space is for working on your projects and how much of it is for storage, that's a very important distinction. And that brings me to my second essential item. A hobby tray. I've talked about these before. Here you go, you can check it out. Hobby trays are very important to me because it allows me to keep a single project or multiple smaller projects organized, and it allows me to move that project around my house if I choose not to work in my office. The next essential item is lighting, and this is my recommendation for how you should set up your lights. Actually, I have everything set up to this slider so that I can control all of my lights simultaneously. My essential lighting setup is composed of 4 lights. I have 2 overhead lights, which are daylight balanced soft LEDs that provide a general soft overcast light. Then I have 2 LED top-down directional lights that can either go between white or daylight and can vary in intensity from dim to bright. They also have the added benefit of each one has a USB plug in it so that I can charge my phone. Now that we have our space defined and our lighting decided, we need to figure out our essential storage. My paint storage system is the Hobby Zone modular system. This is obviously not an essential system. However, what is essential for me is being able to reach all of the stuff that I use on a regular basis without having to move around a lot. So understanding where your workspace is, how much space you have, will dictate how you're going to store your paints. Speaking of paints and supplies, let's get into what I consider to be the essential supplies that you will need to begin your hobby. For painting miniatures, you're going to need brushes. My recommendation is simple. A full line of the Games Workshop brand miniature paint brushes, in my opinion, is essential. On top of that, an extra cheap medium brush, a cheapo small tip art brush, and an old brush that you can use for dry brushing. Can you get away with fewer brushes? Absolutely. Can you spend a whole bunch more on really expensive brushes? Absolutely. This is my recommendation as a hobby essential to just go ahead and buy the full line of Games Workshop brushes. Since we talked about paintbrushes, I assume you want me to talk about paint, and I'm going to completely skip over paint entirely, and we are going to save that for another episode. Our next hobby essentials is glue. Very simple. Plastic glue. Cyanoacrylate or super glue extra thick, cyanoacrylate or super glue gap filling or medium, bottle of Uncure in order to remove these two glues, Instaset, also referred to as Kicker. This will set your super glue really fast, and a bottle of PVA glue. If you want to go for extra credit, I also recommend a bottle of original Gorilla Glue. Hobby tools and supplies. A spoon, a butter knife, a razor blade, a spare set of razor blades, and most importantly, the razor blade disposal chamber, so that when your razor blade is used and done, you safely put it inside of a box to be thrown away. A set of skewers and or mixing sticks, a medium grit round jeweler's file, a fine grit square jeweler's file, a pin drill, and a pair of self-closing tweezers. That means that when these tweezers close, they continue to hold. These next two items are not necessarily essential, but I really like them, and these are Citadel brand grips. They allow you to hold a miniature that is on a base steadily while you paint them. There are other ways to accomplish that, but I find these two to be excellent. I have a lot of basing supplies, and I'm going to break down the essential basing supplies that I think every single person should have on hand. Corkboard, specifically a thick grain corkboard. When you break this apart, it's gonna look like rocks, and it's awesome. Sand and rocks seems really straightforward. It's actually not. You are going to need a fine grained sand. Sand that is literally thinner than salt. A medium grained sand, something like you would find in a playground. A mixture of coarse and fine sand, and a small collection of various size rocks. Between the four of these, you will be able to base everything from your troops, which go better with a fine grained sand, all the way up to dioramas and vehicles and buildings, which look better with a coarse and rock base. Everyone should have static grass, and I found this one very difficult to boil down to my essentials. A yellowish green fall mix, a white and green long grass, and a burnt or black static grass. Flocking is different than static grass. It's often used to make trees and bushes, moss, cobblestone. My favorite flock is the fall mix flock, a dark green grass flock, a yellow flock, and my second favorite, snow flock. I prefer snow flock over baking soda. You probably disagree. If so, let me know in the comments. Last but not least are two more of my basing essentials, and these are dried moss and vines. Now, both of these you can find from a hobby supply store or a craft store. If you're extra lucky and you're paying attention, sometimes you can find them in decorative jars at Target or Walmart and get a super good deal on them. Just as a reminder, I may keep everything in tiny bottles, but you can buy all of this stuff in bulk and then parse it out into smaller containers in order to save money. So there you have my hobby essentials. Really, it's not that much stuff when you just take a look at it in this little pile. I hope this helps you get started with your miniature collection, or to add things to your collection that you might not have thought about. Let's go ahead and finish up putting everything away and cleaning up my office / hobby zone after the terrible flood. And as always, we will see you on the table. Remember to like and subscribe, hit that bell button so you never miss an update, and if you want to take your patronage to the next level, check out our Patreon in the notes below. I will also have links to many of the products listed in here. They are not affiliate links. I don't get any kickbacks. If it's something that you want to check out and buy, please go ahead and do so. And if you have other hobby essentials that you think I should know about, please also tell me about them. You can do that by hopping onto our Discord by becoming a Patreon. Until next time, bye!